10 factors that drain your energy and cause exhaustion. Stoicism. Have you ever felt completely exhausted even without making much effort? You wake up, look at the day ahead, but feel like something is holding you back, slowly draining your energy. No matter how hard you try, it seems like you can never fully recharge. It's as if there are invisible chains pulling you down, taking away your drive and motivation. What could be happening? Maybe you're surrounded by factors that are affecting your energy and you don't even realize it. Small attitudes, thoughts, and relationships might be sucking your vitality, and without knowing it, you accumulate this wear and tear day by day. But what if I told you that there's a way to break free from these chains, to regain control of your energy and live more lightly? An approach that, for centuries, has helped people maintain their inner peace and emotional balance, even in the most challenging times. In this video, we will explore together how Stoicism, a practical and transformative philosophy, can help you identify and eliminate those factors that are wearing you down. Imagine the freedom of facing the day calmly, without carrying the weight of negativity around you. If you've ever wondered how to live more fully, more balanced, with peace of mind, then you're in the right place. Stay with me until the end and discover how small changes can completely transform the way you live. Shall we begin this journey? Have you noticed how some people seem to carry a dark cloud over themselves? No matter the situation, they always find the bad side, the reason to complain, the problem that hasn't yet appeared. Living with these people can be a silent challenge because little by little, their pessimism starts to affect you too. Suddenly, you find yourself more irritable, more tired, with a sense that things aren't going well, even when nothing around you has really changed. What changed, in reality, was your energy, drained by this constant negativity. And the worst part is that often this happens so subtly that we don't even notice it. You start doubting your own decisions, losing enthusiasm for projects that once excited you, and seeing obstacles where you once saw possibilities. It's as if their pessimism begins to shape your way of seeing the world. Does this sound familiar? But here's the key to reversing this. Stoicism reminds us that even if we can't control others' actions, we can always control how we react to them. Imagine if you could keep your calm and clarity, even surrounded by this cloud of negativity. Stoicism teaches that what truly matters isn't what others say or do, but how you respond to it. Pessimistic people often turn small problems into big disasters, and without realizing it, you can get caught up in this spiral. But what if you choose not to be swept along? What if instead of absorbing their negative energy, you manage to stay focused on the positive, on solutions rather than problems? It's emotional resilience training that makes us stronger and less susceptible to the chaos around us. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said something powerful. A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary. Think about that. Pessimism is often a form of premature suffering, creating problems and pains that haven't even happened yet, and often they never will. And this unnecessary suffering drains our energy and robs us of peace. So what can we do? The answer lies in the constant practice of remembering that we have power over our reactions. It's not easy, of course. Being around negative people can be exhausting, but when you choose how to react, you become stronger. You protect yourself. It's not about being indifferent, but about being emotionally intelligent and resilient. By focusing on what you can control, your thoughts, your attitudes, you stop being a victim of others' negativity. Now think for a moment, how would your life be if you didn't let others' pessimism affect you? Imagine the lightness of no longer carrying that weight, of not letting negativity consume you. This doesn't mean distancing yourself from everyone, but rather developing the ability to stay firm and optimistic, even in challenging environments. Each of us is responsible for our own energy, and when you preserve yours, the changes are profound. So next time you find yourself surrounded by pessimism, remember you have the power to decide how to react. Cultivate an attitude of optimism and resilience. Don't let others' negativity define your state of mind. Stoicism gives us this practical wisdom to maintain our inner peace and protect our energy. By doing so, you'll see how everything around you starts to change, not because the world changed, but because you did. Now that we understand the impact that the pessimism around us can have on our energy, it's important to remember that it's not just others who can drain us. Sometimes the source of exhaustion comes from within, from the patterns we create for ourselves. And perhaps one of the biggest thieves of our inner peace is the relentless pursuit of perfection. Have you ever thought about how the pressure to be perfect affects your life? We're not just talking about what others expect from you, but what you impose on yourself every day. We live in an era where perfection seems to be everywhere. Open any social media platform, and there it is. Flawless lives, perfect bodies, uninterrupted achievements. What we don't see, of course, are the failures, the struggles, the mistakes. And without realizing it, we get trapped in this illusion that we need to achieve this unattainable perfection. Every time we look at these carefully curated images, we create an unrealistic expectation for ourselves. Why doesn't my life look like that? Where am I going wrong? These are thoughts that cross many of our minds. The problem is that this obsession with not making mistakes and being the best at everything creates unsustainable pressure. The more we try to be perfect, the more dissatisfied we feel. And that's where Stoicism offers a way out. True strength lies in accepting our flaws and learning from them, not in trying to avoid them at all costs. Think about it. If perfection were the goal of life, we'd be doomed to failure from the start. We are fallible human beings by nature. We all make mistakes, and that's part of the growth process. What Stoicism teaches us is that the focus should be on who we are becoming, not on an idealized and impossible version of ourselves. Epictetus, a great Stoic philosopher, reminds us that it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. The pursuit of perfection is often an internal battle, but you can choose to react differently. Instead of wasting your energy trying to reach an unattainable standard, you can direct it to something much more valuable, accepting your imperfections as part of your growth journey. Stop for a moment and think, how many times have you criticized yourself for not being perfect? How many opportunities have you missed because you were afraid to fail? What if instead of trying to avoid mistakes, you embrace them as lessons? By accepting that failures are part of the process, you lift a huge weight off your shoulders. It's no longer about being flawless, but about being authentic, being true to who you are. In the end, this obsession with perfection only leads to exhaustion. We're constantly comparing ourselves to an ideal that doesn't exist, and the feeling of never being good enough becomes constant. The key to breaking this cycle lies in stopping the measurement of yourself against others' unrealistic standards and focusing on being a better version of yourself within your own conditions and limits. Perfection, after all, is not the absence of flaws, but the ability to evolve with them. When you can look at yourself with compassion and accept your flaws as a natural part of life, you find peace. And it is in that peace that true perfection resides, not in being flawless, but in being genuinely human, learning with every step, every mistake, and every success. So how about starting now? How about letting go of this exhausting pursuit of perfection and choosing instead the lightness of being yourself with all that it entails? When you do this, you'll notice that the energy that was once wasted on self-criticism can now be directed to what really matters: your growth, your authenticity, and above all, your peace. Now that we understand how the obsessive pursuit of perfection can wear us out, let's explore another factor that often goes unnoticed, but has a direct impact on our energy and well-being: the lack of organization. Have you ever had days where it feels like everything is out of place, and no matter how hard you try, nothing flows? Those moments when you feel like you're always trying to catch up, constantly putting out fires? Well, disorganization may be behind this exhaustion. And when we talk about disorganization, we're not just referring to physical space. Of course, a messy workspace, cluttered drawers, and a chaotic environment directly affect our productivity. But in digital times, disorganization can also be invisible, yet equally harmful. Think about the number of tabs open in your browser, the pile of unread emails, or the to-do list that never seems to get shorter. All of this contributes to an overloaded mind. The result? Constant fatigue, that feeling that the day has ended and you haven't accomplished even half of what you planned. You've been there, haven't you? The lack of organization consumes not just our time, but also our emotional energy. Every minute spent looking for a lost document, trying to remember an important task, or rushing against deadlines that could have been avoided is wasted energy that could have been directed toward much more meaningful things. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said something that applies perfectly here. It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot of it. And this loss of time often comes from a lack of structure, of planning. When we're disorganized, our mind is constantly being pulled away from its priorities, leaving us exhausted without even realizing the reason. Now imagine how your life would be if you could reduce this chaos. Organization is a powerful tool to preserve your energy and increase your productivity. And contrary to what many think, you don't need to make big changes to feel the difference. Small actions can bring a sense of control and lightness. Maybe you start by organizing your workspace, creating a cleaner and more functional environment. Or perhaps by sorting your emails into folders so the information is always at hand when you need it. It could be as simple as planning your day the night before, setting your priorities, and knowing exactly what needs to be done. These small changes not only increase your efficiency, but also bring a liberating sense of mental clarity. Remember, organization is not just about putting things in their right place. It's about creating mental space for what truly matters. By organizing yourself, you not only save time, but also preserve your emotional energy, reduce stress, and allow yourself to focus on what is most relevant to your life. So next time you feel overwhelmed or exhausted, take a look around and inside your routine. Could a lack of organization be draining your energy? If the answer is yes, it's time to act. Small changes can have a huge impact on how you live your day-to-day life. Now that we've talked about the importance of organization to preserve our energy, let's address a habit that also deeply drains us: constant comparison with others. How many times have you caught yourself scrolling through social media and suddenly felt inferior? That feeling that somehow your life isn't as incredible as someone else's, that you're falling behind, that you need to do more, to be more. Does this sound familiar? We live in a world where comparison is everywhere, and social media only amplifies it. We see photos of incredible trips, perfect meals, impeccable bodies, and professional achievements that seem unattainable. But what we forget is that we are comparing our behind the scenes to others' highlight reels. What we see on social media is a carefully edited version of people's lives. We don't see the struggles, the insecurities, the moments of doubt. We only see the best angle of everything. And it's in this moment that the cycle of comparison starts to undermine our self-esteem. We begin to question ourselves. Why isn't my life like that? Or what am I doing wrong? This type of thinking creates enormous emotional wear and tear because, without realizing it, we're measuring ourselves against standards that are often unrealistic. But here's the truth. Each of us is on a unique path. We're not all running the same race. Stoicism reminds us to focus on our own progress, on our own development. As Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This means that true satisfaction comes from valuing what we have and following our own rhythm, not from trying to achieve what others seem to have. Think for a moment. Have you ever compared yourself to someone and felt bad, only to later discover that this person was also dealing with difficulties you didn't know about? This happens all the time, and yet we continue to measure ourselves by this unjust and illusory yardstick. Constant comparison robs us of our joy because it always makes us feel insufficient. But the truth is, you are enough just as you are. Instead of spending your energy trying to match others, why not focus on what you've already accomplished? Instead of looking outward, look inward. Every small step you take on your path is valuable. Every victory, no matter how small it seems, is a sign of progress. When we stop comparing ourselves and begin to focus on what truly matters to us, we rediscover our own strength. And here's something powerful. It's okay to be inspired by others, as long as it doesn't turn into comparison. You can admire someone's success and use it as motivation, but without letting it diminish the value of your own journey. Because in the end, what really matters is your path, your choices, and the lessons you learn along the way. So, next time you catch yourself comparing yourself to someone else, remember, your story is unique, and others' success doesn't define yours. Focus on your progress, on your evolution, and you'll see how this shift in perspective can free you from this cycle of self-criticism. Every step toward a more authentic life is a victory, and you deserve to celebrate it. Now that we've discussed the damage caused by comparing ourselves to others, let's address a silent enemy that affects all of us at some point: excessive worry. You know that feeling that follows you throughout the day? That anxiety about what might go wrong tomorrow, next week, or even next year. It's like carrying an invisible backpack full of stones, where each worry adds more weight. The curious thing is that often these stones aren't even real. They are creations of our mind, projected onto a future that hasn't even arrived yet. How many times have you caught yourself wasting energy on something that wasn't even within your control? It could be a worry about health, about work, about an important conversation coming up. The list is endless, and the more we worry, the more energy we expend, wearing ourselves out physically and emotionally. It's like running on a treadmill, a lot of effort, but no progress. But here's the thing. Most of these worries never become reality. However, the mere act of worrying consumes us, and Stoicism offers a powerful perspective on dealing with this. It's not what happens, but how you react that matters. Excessive worry arises from the desire to control what's beyond our reach. Deep down, we know we can't control the future, but what we can control is our mind, our attitude in the present. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic emperors, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This thought reminds us that what's outside our control shouldn't be the source of our suffering. The secret to a more peaceful life is focusing on what we can change now, in the present. Imagine how it would be if, instead of losing yourself in thoughts about what might go wrong, you decided to focus your energy on the actions you can take today. What if you practiced letting go of those useless worries and redirected your focus to what is actually within your control? I'm not saying it's easy, but this shift in perspective can bring a clarity and serenity that you might not even imagine is possible. Think for a moment. How many nights have you lost worrying about something that never happened? How many opportunities were missed because your mind was stuck in future scenarios that in the end didn't materialize? Excessive worry steals our present, keeps us prisoners of an uncertain future, and creates a cycle of stress that wears us down. By practicing Stoicism, we learn to separate what's within our control from what isn't, and by doing this, we find true freedom. Instead of fighting against the future, we accept that it will come as it must, and we focus on doing our best with what we have now. Serenity comes from accepting that we don't control what's outside of us, but we can control how we respond to it. So the next time worry starts to weigh you down, ask yourself, is this within my control? If it's not, let it go. Turn your attention back to the present, to the small actions you can take today. Your peace is here, in the now, not in tomorrow. After all, worrying is like paying a price for something that may never happen. Let's practice this clarity and serenity together, letting go of what we can't change and focusing on what truly matters, the present. Now that we've talked about excessive worry and how it can wear us down, let's delve into another aspect that often goes unnoticed but directly affects our energy and motivation: a boring routine. How many times have you found yourself doing the same things day after day with no enthusiasm, just following autopilot? It's as if the days become exact copies of one another and the feeling of stagnation accumulates, slowly stealing our joy of living. Routine in itself isn't the problem. In fact, having a daily structure can help us be more productive and organized. The problem starts when that routine becomes so monotonous and repetitive that we lose the sense of meaning in what we're doing, waking up, working, eating, sleeping, and repeating it all without any novelty, without a pause to breathe and appreciate something new. Life, when lived in this way, can start to feel like nothing more than a checklist to be crossed off, rather than a series of moments to be enjoyed. Have you ever had that feeling that the days are passing and nothing truly exciting is happening? This mental and emotional exhaustion that arises from monotony isn't just about what we do, but about how we do it. A routine lived on autopilot disconnects us from our own essence and deprives us of the vital energy that comes from the sense of progress and novelty. Stoicism teaches us to find purpose, even in the smallest actions. True satisfaction doesn't lie in what we do, but in how we approach our daily activities. What if instead of allowing routine to dull us, we made small changes to bring more enthusiasm into our day-to-day lives? Think about how it would feel if in the middle of your busy week you set aside a few minutes for something new. It could be something as simple as changing the route you take to work, trying out a new recipe, listening to a different type of music, or even incorporating small breaks throughout the day to breathe and reconnect with yourself. These little variations can inject a dose of freshness into your everyday life, helping to break the cycle of repetition and bringing back the vitality that we often lose. Nietzsche said something very interesting. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. In other words, we need a bit of novelty, surprise, controlled chaos to rekindle the flame within us. Routine can give us stability, but it's in breaking it that we find the true energy to live more vibrantly. If your routine is draining you, the answer isn't to radically change your life, but to make small shifts that bring back the pleasure of being present. The key lies in finding moments of novelty in the things you already do, or adding small activities that renew your motivation. Don't let repetition strip the color from your life. So how about starting now? Think of something simple you can do today to break the monotony. Something that makes you feel alive again, that brings a new perspective to your day. It may be a small gesture, but the impact can be huge, because in the end, life is made up of these small choices, and each one of them can lead us to a fuller, more satisfying existence. Let's step out of autopilot and rediscover the joy in the little things of everyday life. Now that we've explored how a boring routine can drain our motivation, let's talk about something even more fundamental: the lack of sufficient sleep. If there's one thing we all know but often underestimate, it's the power of a good night's sleep. Have you ever started the day feeling tired, as if your energy was drained even before you got out of bed? Lack of sleep doesn't just affect the body, it deeply impacts our mood, focus, and even how we approach challenges. Nowadays, it's common to sacrifice hours of sleep to keep up with all the demands: work, family, social media. And in the end, sleep becomes the last priority on the list. But what we may not realize is that by neglecting sleep, we're actually sabotaging our productivity. Starting the day with your energy already depleted makes even the simplest tasks feel like a burden. You become more irritable, less focused, and it's difficult to maintain emotional balance. And this isn't by chance. Sleep is the time when our body and mind recover. During sleep, we process emotions, consolidate memories, and renew our energy. Without it, the body starts operating in survival mode, functioning below its potential. Think about the times you stayed up all night and then tried to focus in an important meeting or on a task that required creativity. It feels impossible, right? Stoic philosophy teaches us to seek balance in all areas of life, and taking care of our sleep is a fundamental part of this balance. Seneca reminds us, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And on days of extreme tiredness, this phrase makes even more sense. Living fully and consciously requires us to be well rested, mentally prepared to face the day. When we neglect sleep, we put ourselves at a disadvantage from the start. So what can we do? The secret lies in creating a sleep routine that respects your needs. It doesn't have to be complicated, just a series of small adjustments that, over time, make all the difference. Turning off electronics an hour before bed, creating a relaxing environment in the bedroom, or setting a fixed time to go to bed are simple practices that can improve the quality of your sleep. If you've ever tried to compensate for tiredness with more coffee or by forcing your body to run on autopilot, you know how unsustainable that is. Eventually, this lack of rest takes its toll. The body and mind start to show signs: irritability, difficulty concentrating, and even more serious health problems. Prioritizing sleep isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Imagine how it would feel to start the day with a clear mind, with renewed energy, ready to tackle your responsibilities with more ease and disposition. That's the effect of a good night's sleep. Sleeping well is the first step in taking care of yourself, in preserving your mental and emotional health. When we get enough rest, we can face the day with much more balance, and the impact is immediate. So how about making sleep a priority? Your mind and body will thank you, and you'll see how this simple change can transform your productivity, your mood, and even the way you handle daily challenges. After all, taking care of your sleep is at its core taking care of yourself. Now that we've discussed the impact of lack of sleep on our energy and well-being, let's talk about something that can be even more exhausting: toxic relationships. Have you ever had the feeling that being around someone, instead of making you feel stronger, makes you feel like your energy is being drained? People who, instead of bringing support, leave you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, or even questioning your own worth. These are toxic relationships, one of the biggest thieves of peace and emotional well-being we can face. Relationships, whether friendships, family, or romantic ones, should add something positive to our lives. Of course, every relationship has its ups and downs, but the problem with toxic relationships is that the imbalance is constant. Instead of feeling inspired or supported, you find yourself trapped in a cycle of negativity, manipulation, and weariness. These relationships can destroy your self-esteem and make you doubt who you are. Gradually, you begin to carry a weight that isn't yours, a growing emotional burden that becomes unsustainable. And often the hardest part is realizing that you're trapped in such a relationship, because toxicity doesn't always come in an obvious form. It can hide in constant subtle criticism, manipulations, or guilt that shouldn't be yours. And while you try to keep the peace or fix the problems, you're emotionally wearing yourself down, losing the joy and energy to move forward. Stoicism teaches us the importance of protecting our emotional well-being, of setting healthy boundaries to prevent these relationships from consuming us. After all, as Aristotle said, Friendship is a single soul dwelling in two bodies. True connections should be based on mutual support, not emotional destruction. And this applies to any type of relationship. Surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, who make you feel valued and respected, is crucial for your mental and emotional health. Now, this doesn't mean you should cut ties impulsively or drastically, but it is essential to recognize the impact certain people have on your life and, if necessary, set boundaries. This might mean having an honest conversation or gradually distancing yourself if the person isn't willing to change. In some cases, it may even mean completely distancing yourself if the relationship is deeply affecting your well-being. The first step is recognizing that you deserve to be surrounded by people who inspire and strengthen you. You're not here to carry the emotional weight of someone who only drags you down. And yes, this can be difficult, especially when it comes to long-standing or family relationships. But remember, protecting your peace is an act of self-love. Imagine how your life would be if you could spend your energy on those who truly value you, who genuinely want the best for you, and not on those who undermine your self-esteem. When we surround ourselves with people who lift us up, we also grow. Our relationship should be a safe space where we can be ourselves without fear of judgment, criticism, or manipulation. So the next time you feel like a relationship is draining more than it's giving, stop and reflect. Is this person helping me grow or holding me back? If it's the latter, it might be time to make a decision. You have the right to protect yourself, to choose who is part of your life, and most importantly, to preserve your energy and emotional well-being. Let's go on this journey together, surrounding ourselves with healthy and inspiring relationships. Remember, you deserve to be with people who push you to be the best version of yourself. Now that we've talked about how toxic relationships can drain us, let's look at something even more intimate, something that comes from within, constant self-criticism. We all have that inner voice that at times helps us improve and do better. But when that voice becomes relentless, overly critical, it stops being an ally and turns into a powerful enemy, undermining our confidence and leaving us emotionally drained. Have you experienced this? Criticizing yourself to the point where any mistake or imperfection feels like an unbearable burden? We live in a society that often glorifies perfection, making us believe that we always need to be better, faster, and more efficient. And when we don't meet this unattainable standard, the first person to judge us is ourselves. When uncontrolled, self-criticism turns into a vicious cycle. You make a mistake, blame yourself, and instead of learning from it, you get lost in thoughts of not being good enough, of never being able to succeed. And the more you criticize yourself, the harder it is to break that cycle. The problem with constant self-criticism is that it wears us down from the inside out. It makes us rigid, insensitive to our own needs, and prevents us from seeing our progress. Instead of pushing us forward, it traps us in a spiral of self-sabotage, draining all our emotional energy. The result is deep exhaustion, a feeling that no matter how hard we try, we're never good enough. But this is where the Stoic teaching comes in, the practice of self-compassion. Stoicism teaches us to recognize our mistakes without condemning ourselves for them. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And this applies not only to what others do, but to what we do to ourselves. Self-compassion is the ability to look at our flaws and, instead of punishing ourselves, use those moments as opportunities for learning and growth. Think about this. What if, instead of criticizing yourself for every mistake, you started practicing kindness towards yourself? When you slip up, instead of listening to that inner voice that says, "I knew you wouldn't succeed," you respond with something gentler like, "It's okay, this is part of the process. What can I learn from this?" That change in attitude completely transforms the way you see yourself and, more importantly, preserves your emotional energy. Constant self-criticism ties us to an impossible standard of perfection. But the truth is, making mistakes is part of the human experience. No one gets it right all the time, and that's okay. Stoicism invites us to accept our limitations with serenity and to see mistakes as part of the journey. When we practice self-compassion, we learn to treat ourselves with the same kindness we would offer to a dear friend. Remember, you don't need to be perfect to be worthy of respect, love, and success. What truly matters is the effort you make to improve each day, not the fact that you don't make mistakes. When you allow yourself to fail, you also allow yourself to grow. Self-compassion isn't an excuse for mediocrity, but a path to real progress because it frees your mind from guilt and fear, giving you the courage to keep going. So the next time self-criticism arises, try replacing it with self-compassion. Instead of condemning yourself for every little mistake, remember that life is a series of lessons. You're not here to be perfect, but to be human, with all your successes and stumbles. By practicing kindness towards yourself, you'll find much greater inner strength and a confidence based not on perfection, but on accepting who you truly are. Now that we've talked about the dangers of constant self-criticism, let's tackle another habit that we often neglect, but that has a direct impact on our emotional health. Not taking time for ourselves. In the rush of daily life, it's easy to get lost in commitments, responsibilities, and external demands. We're always taking care of work, family, obligations, and in doing so, we end up neglecting the most important person in the process, ourselves. How many times have you reached the end of an exhausting day, realizing that you did absolutely nothing for yourself? That all your time was spent solving others' problems or meeting external expectations? When we don't take time to care for ourselves, burnout is inevitable. The mind and body send signals: constant fatigue, lack of patience, lack of motivation. And if we're not careful, this cycle can lead to deep exhaustion, emotionally, physically, and mentally. Stoicism teaches us the importance of finding balance in everything we do. And self-care isn't selfish, it's a necessity. If we don't take time for ourselves, how can we expect to have the energy to take care of all the other areas of our lives? How can we be the best version of ourselves for others if we're constantly putting our own needs second? Imagine your energy like a cup. If you're always giving, always striving to meet external demands without ever recharging, eventually that cup will run dry. And when it's empty, you have nothing left to give, not to yourself or to others. That's why setting aside moments for self-care is essential. It doesn't have to be something grand, but small pauses throughout the day can make a huge difference. Think of something simple. Maybe it's a moment of silence in the morning before starting the day, to meditate or just enjoy your coffee in peace. It could be a walk outdoors to clear your mind, time to read a book you love, or even an evening when you decide to disconnect from everything and everyone to reconnect with yourself. These small moments of self-care are essential for recharging your energy. Aristotle said, "Happiness depends upon ourselves." This means that well-being doesn't come from the outside, it's cultivated from within. Taking care of yourself isn't just a way to maintain balance, but a way to honor who you are and what you need. When we take time to rest, reflect, and care for our own needs, we're investing in our mental and emotional health. And most importantly, by taking care of yourself, you're not only benefiting yourself, but also improving the way you interact with the world around you. A rested mind, a peaceful heart, renewed energy, all of this makes you stronger and more prepared to face the daily challenges. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed or exhausted, ask yourself, when was the last time I took time for myself? If the answer is, a long time ago, it's time to change that. It doesn't have to be anything complex or time-consuming, but find small moments throughout your day to care for yourself. Remember, your energy and well-being are just as important as any other task on your to-do list. Let's practice self-care together. learn to respect our needs, and recharge our energy. By doing this, we'll not only be taking care of ourselves, but also preparing to give our best in everything we do. And so, we come to the end of this video, but I hope the impact of these reflections stays with you. We've talked about the importance of not neglecting the most important person in our lives, ourselves. When you take the time to care for yourself, you ensure that you'll have the energy needed to face daily challenges while maintaining the emotional balance we all seek. Remember, self-care isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. The daily rush can't be an excuse to forget about you. Small moments of pause and self-care can completely transform your disposition and your quality of life. And the best part, the more you take care of yourself, the more prepared you are to take care of other areas of your life with calm, clarity, and strength. So here's the challenge. Reserve a moment today, even if it's just a few minutes, to do something for yourself. Recharge your energy. You deserve it. Leave a comment saying that you accepted the challenge. I want to see your initiative. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay up to date with more content like this that can help you live more fully and balanced. See you soon.